All right, this week we're going to add 2 more mini band strengthening exercises for the hips. If you go back and look at the video from last week, we did some hip abduction and some circle motion for the hip work. This week we're just going to do straight up hip flexion. It's really a little hip flexion, knee flexion, and add in some hip extension in there, but it's really more concentrating or focusing on that hip flexion. So the first thing we'll look at is the side lying hip flexion while we bend the knee. So we just take the band again, put it on the foot, actually both feet, and again you're going to be straight from ankle, knee through the hip. So we've got the straight line there, and then all we're going to do is come up into a hip flexion. So I'm just pulling knee up and toe up towards the face. So spin a little bit so you can see a little bit more from the front. So straight up and down, nice controlled hip flexion there. Get a little pause at the top if you want to add some isometric work or isometric hold to it. So that's the first one. The second one is a straight leg hip flexion. Again, we're going to add into a little bit of extension because we're going to go kind of past neutral into some extension, and then we get a little bit more flexion work out of it. So you'll just slide the band up to the ankles, and again side lying, and then from the position, the starting position that we were in before, all we're going to do is going into some straight leg hip flexion and then into some extension. So I'm just going to kind of come through, just a quick little pause there, and doing a little bit of hip extension as well. The hip extension focus is not as much as the hip flexion work here as we're doing it. So that's 2 ways to do some hip flexion work with the mini band. You can do it both ways, or choose one way, do it with a bent knee or straight leg. And as always, the mini bands are a great little way to add a little bit of strengthening, a little bit of variation to your program. Look at the video from last week, look at all the videos here on Facebook, over at YouTube, check your newsletter.